Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
At and Gloves Off. I'm Professor Buitrón, and I'm here with a great individual, great martial artist in Texas, Master Allen. We're going to be touching base with what's going on in today's martial arts. What's missing from when we trained 20 years ago, 30 years ago to right now? What has changed? How we doing? Hope everything's fine with you.
Well, we're doing good, recovering from the sickness that was worldwide. Getting things back together, trying to get the school going again here in the Plano area. People are a little shy, gun shy about everything, but people are a little shy. People are shy about everything. They'll survive. People are strong. They'll survive. They're good. We're good things.
Absolutely. We went through that, with Savat here. We went through that. I think we had with Savat. There were 11 clubs. I think we had 3 of them 11 left that are open. The rest of them closed down. 3 of them because left that are open. The rest of them closed down because they had. I know a lot of martial artists at their schools were shut down, and I know a lot of martial artists at their schools were shut down. It's sad because it took a toll to all the small businesses. It's sad because it took a toll to all the small businesses. It's how can I say it? How can I say it? Talk this way. We in martial arts. I'm going to talk this way. We in martial arts. We teach people to have more self-esteem, more self-confidence, more self-esteem, more self-confidence. That's exactly whatever happened to everybody. We were bullied. That's exactly whatever happened to everybody. We were bullied. Regardless, whatever you think, and whether it's positive or negative, where you're at in the spectrum of positive or negative, where you're at in the spectrum of what occurred in 2020. Small businesses were basically shut down. Small businesses were basically shut down. Actually, there's some small businesses that were icons to the community. They were the backbone of certain communities, and they just closed them down. People did not support them when they came back up again. And that's the sad part.
I was so brokenhearted when I would see, people posting things like, I took like a four-year sabbatical from Facebook just to kind of, not pay attention to what everybody else was talking about. And when I came back on Facebook, it was right after COVID, everything happened. And I saw so many great martial arts people, 40, 50 years, they had their schools just gone. And, so a lot of us are, a lot of us are opening up smaller schools, like turning our garages into schools or teaching community centers, which a lot of people scoff at because, you teach at the community center, you must not be very good, so absolutely. Some of the best guys you find are teaching out of a cardboard box behind a supermarket. You never dismiss somebody because they don't have, a 500 student school. Those are,
Absolutely. And then, I saw that across the U.S., especially we're in Laredo, Texas. We're not that far from you, but I saw that. I saw the beating everybody took in Houston. Schools that were around 30, 40 years were no longer there. This school's been around since '88. You can see the patina on the walls. You can see the age it has. It's the first school of Savat here in the States. But regardless of that, I look at schools like in Dallas. There's many schools that aren't there anymore. And schools that had 300 students, schools that were stables of arts in certain areas that produce so many people that went out and taught others, and it's incredible. It's incredible.
Sad, very sad, but we're, like you said, we're resilient. We like a sword. You can bend it 30 degrees and it pops right back, and still sharp, able to cut. We're not going to die. We're still going to keep pushing. It's the passion that we have inside that has kept us doing it so long, and kept us interested in it and driving us to learn it beyond what most people would even dream of. Well, I'll never be a master, they say, but you don't know that until it gets into your blood and it gets a hold of you. It's stinking addictive.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's where what we were talking about. And there's a lot of things that were lost. There's a lot of new schools that are opened up with young individuals that love the martial arts, but things weren't passed because things were, how can I say, you have to do an apprenticeship within, I don't care what martial art it is. It has to be an apprenticeship. You're going to become an instructor. There has to be an apprenticeship for it to be passed down.
Yes.
You're not going to learn it on an instructor manual with 5 DVDs at $499. Here's you're an instructor. Go open up the door. There's plenty of that going on. You're not going to have that.
No.
There's a lot of here. I did a research, and it took me. I spent some money last year, and I said I want to find out how many schools were in Laredo pre-COVID, and that taught martial arts throughout. Laredo has it has on the census 260,000, but in all reality, with all the people here, it's more like 350,000. It had 83 different places that were teaching some sort of kickboxing, kickbox aerobics, or self-defense, or what have you, or the schools. And then there were 12 major schools that were by themselves, this one included. But then there were others, all the rec centers, all the gyms, everybody was compounded to that. So it was 83. June, June of last year, okay, I made the study and I said, how many schools are there now? There are only 13 open.
That's
okay.
So sad.
That's so sad. So all the ones that were in the gyms, all the ones that were in rec centers and the college and all the different areas, those were gone. Those were shut down. They're not coming back.
Yeah.
A lot of the main schools that were floating around were gone. Okay. And then in August, we did it again. How many schools? This past August. Now there's 28. Well, now you start seeing a bunch of people that are teaching, that are places where they're teaching. Well, you started seeing a huge uprise in kickbox aerobics and box aerobics in the rec centers, granted.
Yeah.
And teaching kickbox aerobics, self-defense. And you start seeing the names. Those people they left your school when they were a yellow belt in Campo. They couldn't even make a blue glove of Savat because they didn't have the dedication to stick it 1 year. You know what I'm saying? So the lacking of is low. I don't know if you're seeing that over there.
We do. We see a lot of that over here, where there's just people getting box tops, black belts, and open up karate daycares. It's just insane, and they're not teaching. They're giving people a false sense of security. They're literally giving these people a death sentence, is what they're doing, because the whole point of martial arts, of course, is to never draw the sword, because you have to draw blood, and then there's a lot of paperwork involved. So we want to try to teach people martial arts is that confidence that martial arts gives you to walk away from a fight. Is that confidence that martial arts gives you to stand up to the bank teller and say, no, I've cashed checks here before like this. It just gives you confidence to stand up for yourself. I know in our system, and you were talking about apprenticeships and stuff, which I find fascinating, because in our system under my Grandmaster, who unfortunately just passed away in July, the man that I've spent, 30 years under, and then, the master that I had before that I spent another 15 years under him. has also passed away. So they're all pretty much passing away. Bong Sohan and Chang Yong-she and everybody's passing away because, it's that generation. But in our system, you don't get a black belt till you're 16. You're white belt to black belt. You're an apprentice to become a student. Once you become first degree black belt, you're now a registered student with the federation, with our organization. Second degree is a senior student. Third degree is assistant instructor. We start teaching children, the young kids. We don't take anybody under 8 or 10 years old. We wait till they get their adult teeth coming in. And then third degree, then you're promoted. And anyway, when I was doing this in Korea, then the Grandmaster, the Kwanjang, the school master of our organization, Grandmaster Changs, would say, okay, this guy's good enough. We're going to put him into the martial art university. It's a 3-year school. You learn chiropractic, acupuncture, acupressure, sports massage. You learn all sorts of stuff about physiology and psychology of combat and philosophies and all sorts of stuff. If you graduate that 3-year school and you take your test, you get 2 certificates. You get your 4th degree black belt and you get your instructor certification. Then you can go out and open a school. As I know in Korea, if you don't have those 2 certifications, that 4th Dan Sadan, and then your Hongin Sabom, you're a certified instructor or license, and you try to open a school in Korea, they'll arrest you and put you in prison for practicing without a license. So it's serious. Martial arts is a serious business. You're literally putting people's lives on the line by not teaching them properly. And old school people like yourself, like a lot of the guys that we know, through the years, I've been doing it. This is 46 years this year. I've been doing Hapkido. And there are so many people now that are doing Hapkido. And there's a lot of that I say, you should really master one art. You get your roots down and you get the trunk of the tree growing, and the tree grows. So let's say you have an olive tree, you want to grow a stem of cherries. Well, you can now take that olive tree, that strong, healthy olive tree, and cut a graft of cherry tree and stick it in there and have a branch of cherries or a branch of avocados or, sure. Plants, they kind of meld together and you learn, different things from one another and you learn all that stuff. But yeah, martial arts nowadays is it kills me. It literally hurts my brain to think about the fact that people are teaching other people how to defend themselves. And, we've all talked about this before in the past, how we watch these videos on YouTube of people teaching knife defense and we go, oh, Lord, please don't teach that. You're going to get somebody killed. But people don't know. People nowadays just go join a martial arts school because it's fun, family fitness, right? So they go to a doctor and they don't even research their doctor. Where did they go to medical school? How long have they been practicing? What have their specialties been? And we should do that with our martial arts instructors too. When people go to do martial arts and they go to a school, you should interview your martial arts instructor. You're hiring him, us as a master, as a teacher, to teach yourself and your family a life skill and not just fighting stuff, because that's the lesser part of the martial arts. It's the whole idea of how to be a human being and treat each other with respect and honor and patience and love and care and that kind of stuff. So when I tell people they ask me, well, what should I look for in a martial arts school? I go, first of all, go to your instructor and ask to see his certificates. If they're, certificates, I want to know their history. Where did they learn? Where have they been practicing? How many students have they had that have gone in open schools, and, a lot of that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're right there together on all of this. All of us old school guys are like box top black belt kindergarten, martial arts schools teaching 2-year-olds martial arts. I understand the concept because I taught my kids from the moment they could, and my test with my kids was, can you walk across the room with a bowl of water without spilling it while not looking at it? If you can do that, you have enough wherewithal in your mind to keep your balance, move from your center, and learn how to learn stuff, And then as they get older, beyond the point where their bones are starting to solidify and they're getting tougher into the teenage years, then we start, after that first degree black belt at 16 years old, they get that grit, and then they start really learning the hardcore stuff. Because in the Sheila Dynasty in Korea, there was a queen, the first woman queen of Korea. She had hwarang, the flowering youth. She would take kids, young men, 13 years old, train them for 3 years until they were 16, certify them as warriors, and put them on the battlefield. Do that with the kids today. It's not possible. We're too weak. We got these cell phones, and every time we touch a cell phone app, it gives us instant gratification. Then we get on the mat, and the master says, or the teacher says, professor says, okay, I want you to move like this and move this way and turn this way or do this thing. And they go, well, it didn't work the first time, so I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. Yep. And there's no instant gratification. We know that. It's hard work.
We had an up race in a lot of kids in this summer. I would say April, May, June, July, the school grew with kids. This school's always been young adults and adults more. Yeah, we've had kids running around. We've always had a kids class, but it wasn't a school that had, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't a school that had so many kids. You know what I'm talking about. Some of these other, that's all they have. And then they have one adult, and in adult class, they might have two. No, this was the other way around. And they brought me a group of kids, two brothers, that were at a local school. Won't mention the name. They were there for 7 years. Kids were 11 and 12. Comes in here, and I said, okay, let's throw me a right punch. And you've been doing it for 30 years. And, I'm doing this for people out there to understand that this is not the way you punch. Okay, it's going to take, and I was like, do it again. And they both did that. And I was like, and how long were you over there?
Yeah.
And I told the father again, how long were they there? One was 7 and one was 6 years. And I was like, and you were paying how much for? I go, so they started here, and let's get back into business. We're back into you're gonna know how you make a fist, and you're gonna know that if a punch comes at you, well, it's like boxing. If you don't block it or you don't parry it, you're gonna get it in your face.
Especially the left hook, man. That thing will knock your eyes out.
And all of a sudden, I don't like this. Well, no, that's what it is. So you saw one start leaving the other, and all of a sudden they both left. And the father said, no, I'm going to take them back to where they were before. Please do, because they're not for here.
Yeah.
I was like, it wasn't no thing out of me. Okay, fine. We lost 2 students. But I'm like, if that's what you want, parents, if you want that type of thing that's going to happen, school right now is very, very violent.
Oh, okay? Yeah.
In Dallas, throughout, it's very, very violent. There's a lot of fights happening, and they're very, very violent fights. And people need to understand that you better teach your students correctly, because we're also going to be facing the world where the violence is going to catch up to them. And I'm not trying to say that we're Supermen or anything like that, but we have a type of ability to sense that there might be trouble, and let's walk the other way. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. It's the same thing when you're sitting in a library and you feel like somebody staring at you, and you turn and you're looking them dead in the eyes. It's that human intuition that we've lost. And that's something that the martial arts really, that's the spirit, the spirit of the martial arts, that, you can feel it coming. Like you remember the old ninja movies in the 90s, and he could catch the arrow, but it's true at a certain point. Hollywood eyes is that, whatever, but it's true for a point. You can feel when something's happening. And kids nowadays, and people nowadays, and I blame all of the electronics, the loss of concentration. They can't even do math in their head anymore. It's actually really sad.
That's something I was telling my son earlier today, because he we're talking about numbers. And I remember before cell phones, I knew everybody. Most of my Most of the students that came to the school that were there all the time, that core crew that was in there, you knew their numbers in the back of your head. You knew your suppliers' numbers in the back of the head, and you could call in. But now you have to look at the phone and kind of figure it out. Like, so, but it's true. They're dumbing us down in a certain way.
Yeah, it's true.
Other than that, I guess that's what it is. And I think that dumbing down the martial arts and the martial artists, or what, if you want to put it that way, we're being more. I'm being facetious, but that has been, I think, also the removal of protocol. That's something that's been missing. Yeah. That protocol is no longer there. Facebook, you see it. How long did it take you to talk to the grandmaster that you were there in your system, your style? It didn't happen when you were a white belt or a young belt going in there. It didn't happen until they saw something in you. One day they approached you. And with Facebook, you can add anybody on there. And all of a sudden you're calling a legend. Hey, Bobby, how you doing? You doing good? Okay. And you've never been, and that guy's never been in martial art class. And all of a sudden just calling him up. By the time years ago, not that long ago, it was going to take you quite a while to get there. And there was a respect in there. It's been lost. What do you think about that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of loss of respect. People are very surprised when they hear my kids saying yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am to people, and they're like, wow, your children are really polite. And I go, no, they're normal. They're not polite. This is how they're supposed to be. Humility, as I explained to my students' life, is humility is just knowing where your place is, just knowing your place. You don't just go, walking into the king's palace and plop down next to him. What's up? It doesn't happen like that. You sit at the end of the table. If the king recognizes that you're eating different than everybody else, the king's like, who is that guy? Or a girl or whatever, bring them up and I want to talk to them and see where they're from, why they eat different than us, what's going on. And then everyone in the room is like, oh, who's that guy? Why is he talking to the king? And then everybody wants to know who you are. And then you just say, oh, I don't know. I just showed up because I saw a flyer for free burritos. I like burritos. Burrito.
You're absolutely correct. It was a while. It was a while before you met individuals, before you talked to certain levels, and you were among certain levels, even though you were in the same place. Just didn't. A lot of people.
Yeah, I was.
What?
Sorry. Yeah, I was never invited to eat dinner at Grandmaster Changs or Kwanjing's house with his family until after I made my 4th degree in that instructor certification in Korea. Then he invited me to his house to eat with his family. And I was like, whoa, it was like the pinnacle of your life to break bread with the Grandmaster. It's like, wow. And you're there with the other instructors, your seniors and stuff. And you just quiet and you're eating your food and they ask you questions and you politely say yes or no. And but now you ask a child in class, how did you feel about you did really good in class today, how do you feel about class? And they'll it was okay. What?
Yeah.
Well, it was okay. They become so apathetic now and undisrespectful. And I do blame a lot of the social media and electronics and stuff. We didn't have I made my daughter watch a video with me the other day, actually yesterday, a 10-minute video about what it was like living in the 70s. There was no cell phones, no computers, no water purification systems. You went to the grocery store to buy milk. There was milk or no milk. There was no oat milk, no rice milk, no fat-free or reduced fat. It was milk or no milk. It was bread or no bread. We didn't have all these variety foo-foo. I call it foo-foo. And that's what we have in the martial arts nowadays. There's a lot of foo-foo. These guys that are out there doing flying flippy spin kicks and kicking balloons off the ceiling of a 23-foot building, and it's impressive. I mean, it takes some skill and a lot of practice and dedication to do that. But the students are drawn to the school by those, what my grandmaster used to call parlor room tricks,
Sure. Parlor trick.
carnival tricks, like, ooh, he could put a needle through a balloon without it popping. How did you do that? Oh, with the many years of a practice, so you can do it too. And the funny thing is, my grandmaster said, you don't have time to learn that stuff, because today may be the day your life is challenged. Today. And you need to learn today what you need to learn so you can survive tomorrow.
Absolutely. You're on point. You're on point. I see fighters, people that want to fight.
Yeah.
Come in and they say, I want you to teach me, because I want to be an MMA fighter. That's a craze. I want to be an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Okay. How old are you? 38. And have you done martial arts before? No, but I'm pretty good at boxing. Oh, so you boxed before? Yeah, so I've been watching it on TV. Oh, so.
Yep.
You're like, well, it's going to take you a while before I would even consider taking you into the ring,
Yeah.
You're going to be here for a good while before I can even consider you. Number one, I need to find out if you have the dedication. And if you can't do the basic classes and be in the basics and get ranked for you to know your basic blocks, punches, and defenses, basic ones, why will I spend my time just go out there and throw you in there? I don't want to get you hurt.
Yeah. And
you know what I'm saying?
So you can make a quick buck, right? That's what a lot of these instructors do. They want to make a quick buck off their students.
And all of a sudden they say, well, I'm going to go down the street. Please do so. You want me to send you to somebody that has that type of gym? Here's a number. Tell them I send you. Mm-hmm. Go right ahead. It's not. And we used to have a big stable that we used to fight in boxing, and in Savannah, of course, we used to have great fighters who produced many Golden Glovers. In the early 2000s. Oh, yeah. But they don't have the dedication anymore. You need to be here. It's a total different entity. I guarantee you, if you go to a boxing gym and you pay the $35 a month, because most boxing gyms will top $50 a month, and that's basically just for the light to keep the place open. And there's no classes. You're going to go there whenever you want, hit the bag whenever you want. You might find somebody that tells you, okay, well, you know what? Duck your shoulder inside when you put your hands up a little bit more. Maybe if they see you in there long enough. And if you go in there long enough, maybe somebody's going to tell you, hey, let me show you something, and they'll get you on the inside.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they say, oh, he's been here a while. Let's put you to spar somebody. Mm-hmm. And if you have the guts to continue coming back, then they say, okay, maybe we'll take you to the ring. You know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden you're going to start being, and people don't understand that place, that exists.
That's one of the things that Grandmaster Chang was really adamant about when he taught us was, he told us a story when he was 9 years old, hiding under the kitchen table, watching the North Koreans kill his family members, and he said, never again. So he at that point is when he really dedicated his life, to the martial arts and wanted to be better and teach others to defend themselves and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that used to scare a lot of the military guys that would come off base to train with us downtown, was that Grandmaster Chang would say, okay, today we're going to be learning knife attacks and knife defense, and we're going to be learning about how to use a knife and, which is the dangerous end, which is not. And he'd open the drawer and pull out 4 U.S. Marine Corps issued K-bars, and he'd hand them out, and they'd go, well, that's a real knife. And Grandmaster Chang go, you think they attack you outside plastic knife? You can go now. You bleed here, you live out there. You bleed out there, you die out there. So he was like he was hardcore, but he was like, he wasn't like a destructive teacher. And he taught slowly. He started out with big circles. And then as you got better and better, the circles got smaller and smaller, and the knife attacks got faster and faster, and grabs got harder and harder, and kicks got stronger and stronger. You can't hit a sapling as hard as you can hit a grown oak tree, right? So he would start you out slow and teach you how to use a knife, first of all, how to hold it this way, how to hold it this way, the different ways of doing it, and get your mindset to where you were comfortable with the knife, and you knew that if you move this way or move that way, then if they were coming with a stab or a slice, you could at least get out of the way and run away to fight another day. yeah, it was different, you know, and in the years that I trained with my first instructor and then my instructor, Grandmaster Changs in Korea, I would say, even tough military guys that came downtown because of the way that Grandmaster Changs taught, they would stay a month, 3 months at most, and then they would be, you know, oh, this girl batted her eyes at me, and I'm, you know, or this beer tastes good, or, you know, whatever, you know, I went to the gym and lifted some weights and I feel stronger, so I don't need this martial arts anymore. I don't know. Miyamoto Musashi was only like 5 foot tall, and I wouldn't want to mess with him in a dark alley, you know, just saying. You know, size has really a lot to do with it. I mean, if you really look at, well, Wing Chun was designed by a woman, right? So that smaller people could learn how to defend themselves against bigger people. And so, you know, you have a lot of that stuff that people don't know, the history of the martial arts and what it's all about, the circular movements, the triangular movements, the square movements, understanding the 5 basic principles of martial arts, which is what? Anatomy, knowing the human body, right? Physiology, knowing how the parts work with and against each other, psychology of combat and how to keep yourself at peace when under stress. And then you have, you know, geometry and physics, which goes into that. And one of the things that I talk to my students about all the time, I said, you have to forge your body through training your spirit. You train your spirit hard, and your body will naturally forge into the martial artist you're supposed to be. It will naturally get stronger. You don't have to worry about, you know, the samurai didn't go to Gold's Gym. They didn't run marathons. They didn't have a Peloton bike. You know, they trained hard, and they were farmers. They worked the land, and they trained hard, and they were survivalists. So one of the last things is that what I share with my students is you're a sword. You start out as a block of metal, and my job as the blacksmith is to put you under fire, bang you out, fold you, bang you out, fold you, put you in the shape of a blade, hone you, sharpen you, put the furniture on. Each sword has its own furniture, so each sword is going to have the same purpose but a different look. But what is the most important thing to you as a martial artist is the same as it is to a sword. If that sword loses its temper, you're worthless. You can't keep your edge, and you become dull and you break. You have to keep your temper. You have to keep calm, and that's part of the martial arts. The training that, you know, people get so upset nowadays. I watch these videos of road rage, and I'm like, just exacerbated at the craziness going out there. People getting angry and starting shooting people over a parking spot because we've lost our temper. You know, we're broken.
It's a lot of people are broken, and it's very hard that, well, you know, let me put it to you this way. There was a feeling during 2020 when you walked outside. There was kind of like, when is it going to blow? When is it going to snap? And it's not paranoia. You sensed it. You saw it with people, and when you went to the groceries, you know, like, you know, and you saw the people looking at people. You can see the eyes, and you can see the way the eyes were talking to you. And you know, and then that kind of started easing off, and then you started seeing the ones that were wearing the mask and the steel mask are the ones that are losing it now in front of people. And they're coming very unglued, very, very violent real quick. They're snapping out at you. And you kind of take things in the stride, you know, and it's, people do not know that people are right now have their fuse was shortened.
Yeah.
A lot of the folks out there have a very short fuse, and they come unglued on anything. You know, I saw this one lady become unglued on the cashier. The cashier didn't make a mistake. It was a lady's mistake, not the cashier's mistake. And she went unglued on everybody that was there. It was like the 4th and 9. I was just watching. I said, well, you know, here it goes. And poor thing, when I walked up there and I told her, you okay? You know, I told the cashier, and she said, yeah. And she comes here all the time, and she's always a nice lady, but just, it's because that they've become how can I say, the fuse has been shortened to everybody.
Well, the fuses have been dipped in gasoline.
Yep.
It's like poof.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's going to get worse. I think we're going to get, people are very, very upset at everything that's going on. I think this election season is going to be very heated, more so than ever.
I agree.
I think there's a lot of people that are very, very, they have buyer's remorse. There's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of people that are, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. And, God bless America now in its time of need. You know what I mean?
We all need to stand up as patriots and start really fighting for this country. We become, and again, apathetic. It's like, the government is the current people that are in the government now have so just brainwash people to believe that we work for them. It's we the people, and they are our representatives, and they're supposed to represent our thoughts and ideas and things in Congress and to the president, and then they vote on it. And if we as Americans say 70% of the people say, hey, we want our Second Amendment rights, we want to be able to defend ourselves, give it to the people. But what's happening is it's not happening like that. And people are just like, they're so apathetic. They're like, yeah, the government knows what they're doing. I'm just going to live my life with my mask on and paper bag over my head and stumble through life. And, and another thing that we see a lot, and you understand this too, is that, in the old days, people used to work for a company for 20 years, retire, get a gold watch, airplane ticket to Fiji, whatever. The average person nowadays stays with a job less than 5 years, and it's like 2 years now. It's gotten even worse after COVID. It's the same in the martial arts. They'll go from school to school to school to school to find the teacher that says, oh, good boy, Johnny, you're such a good boy. Oh, that sidekick was amazing. Kid, you didn't even break a balsa wood board. You can't even, you kick the bag and you fall down and, oh, but it was good. Oh, you showed up for class. Yay, good boy. Oh, we're so proud of your son, with their white belt and 50 different stripes on it, and the parents are, my son is a 3rd degree black belt. Oh, really? How old is he? 9. Oh, very impressive. I hope that 9-year-old kid doesn't get abducted by some weirdo coming across the border because they're wide open, and then, it's a parent's responsibility to defend our children, but to teach the children. And I think one of the things that martial arts teaches is not only the physical self-defense aspect of, of everything, but it's to teach those kids that, hey, this guy's a creep. This guy's a creep. And they don't know. They like, I see little kids in the mall walking up to complete strangers and just like walking around with them. And where's your parents? Oh, they're over there on their phone. They didn't even notice their kid walked away.
No, you're correct. There's a lot of stuff that we have to start bringing back basics. Let's get back to the fundamental. Let's get back to the basics.
Yep.
Back to the basics, and whether you're in the martial arts, whether you're in yoga, Zumba, whatever it is, you have to be careful where you go in. You have to be careful when you become a membership of. You want to, if I tell people, how many businesses have been around for 30 years? Not that many.
Not that many.
They strangled us during 2020. We're still here, stumbling up, but we're still here.
Yeah.
We've been around since '88. We're still here. My dad and my uncle were teaching. I'm teaching afterward from 2000 to the present. Mm-hmm. And if somebody comes in after I do it, I say, call it quits. Continue. Please go forward, because that's what institutions are.
Yeah,
that's what schools are. That's what schools are. They continue moving forward. They don't die out and let's go open up another one over here. They continue. Of course, there's others that go out and build, but that's what it is.
That's what I'm trying to. I'm finding that 20 years ago, my school in Florida had a core of students that were die hard. Like I had like 50 students that were just die hard students, and no matter what, they were in class, whether they were hurt or not hurt. I said, even if you have a broken arm, come to class anyway. You can still train with one hand, because people forget that criminals are predators, and predators go to those who they perceive to be weaker than them, because they're lazy. If they weren't lazy, they'd go get a job. So they don't want to work hard to steal the money that you worked for 40 hours. They don't want to work hard, so they want to just attack those who are weak. And in your weakness, you need to keep training. They need to keep training so that they can overcome that weakness and become a more well-balanced person mentally, mostly, to learn how to, environmental awareness is probably the hardest thing to teach people,
Yep, absolutely. And
They'll
you
walk
can
right
only,
into a door.
if you've experienced, I tell people this, if you've experienced something, your life, whatever your life said, you cannot teach something that you have never learned. If you yourself don't know what it is, then you can't go out there and be teaching something that it's not. I'm sorry to tell you. And I'm glad that you said something about predators. And this is truth. There's different, people don't know, but in Africa, there's zebras, and there's different types of zebras.
Mm-hmm.
And in South Africa, they were going after, there's grants, and then there's mountains, and there are hartzels. But it was a hartzell zebra that they were counting in this one area. So people need to understand that the zebra's camouflage is not for it to blend in with the wild. It's to blend in with the herd. So you don't see what is who. It's the herd camouflage. So what these veterinarians started doing, they started studying the. I remember this was told to me when, and I've been up there. I found it all over. But was told to us by our professional hunter was that they came out there and they started marking the zebras that were being tested for specific blood type, and they're still running tests, and they were going to run the test on this whole herd.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what happened? They'll put a zebra to sleep. They'll run the test, and they painted the hind another color. So they did this to several. The next day they come back and they couldn't find them, but they found their carcasses because they were painted. And guess what? Now the predators looked at them and they could spot them anywhere they were at. And they took them. The lions took them out. The hyenas took them out. The wild dogs took them out. And why? Instead of understanding that the camouflage was the herd camouflage, they just made these zebras stand up like a sore thumb because they painted their hind quarter.
Let's put a mask on them.
That's exactly right. They just put a flag on them. Here, come kill me. So predators are that way. So if you have a cast out there, if you're running around with predators, are going to look at that weakness and they're going to follow it. So you better understand that sometimes life goes on and you have to continue training. But how do we get parents to understand that? You can explain it to them and they're not. Why? Because it's very, very hard.
Well, Johnny's going to stop karate for a little while because he has baseball season.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, that's good and all. I mean, maybe Johnny's going to become a professional. Yeah. Maybe Johnny's going to become a professional baseball player. Who knows? But what good is it for somebody to have all of this talent, be out in the public eye, have a lot of money, and not be able to protect it? It's crazy. If somebody knows I have $1 million in my back pocket and I'm walking around with my shoulders down like this and kind of like, and I look like prey, then I'm going to get eaten alive. But if I'm walking with my shoulders back and I'm standing up straight and the bad guy comes up and you look him right in the eyes and you say, "Do I know you?" No. They don't want to fight. They're lazy predators. They're going to go for the weak, or who they perceive as weak. But that's another story for another time. Grandmaster Chang, and I teach my students the same thing: is appear weak but be strong.
Absolutely.
Don't be mean to your students. You don't have to beat them up to teach them martial arts. You got to be rough, and it hurts. And I've had joints dislocated and been cut with a knife in class and bled on the mat. And, Grandmaster John was like, stop looking at your arm. Your arm's not the attacker. The attacker's over there. Stop looking at your arm. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
No, yeah, you're absolutely. You need to. You're right. And how do you pass that on? Yeah, I don't want my students to feel a blade. I don't want my students to sense a blade. I don't want my students to be there. But you have to I experienced that. But how are you going to pass that on? So you have to pass them on through drills and exercises and the understanding of what it is. And sometimes the understanding comes out a little bit too rough, but it's reality of what it is. Reality is cruel. The real world out there is a cruel world. And people that say, no, it's not, has something else to come in. And it's just how it's been perceived. If it's done within safety, it's one thing. But if we're doing a facade of this is so safe that we're actually not doing the job that you paid us to do, something happened to your kid. Let me put it to the city probably before 2000. Okay, the city that had more, or in last century, more fighting schools, martial arts schools, whichever way you want to call them, had more schools than any other city in the world. You know which one it was? It was New Orleans. New Orleans had dueling schools almost in every corner. They taught people how to duel. They taught people up to post World War II, up into the 20s. All the schools were there. The last ones closed down in the 30s. So they were teaching you how to fight with a knife, how to gun, with a sword, with an axe, how to fight with your fist, how to fight with. And a lot of people were sending their children to those schools. There weren't long schools, but you were there for 30 days apprenticeships. You were there for 6 months apprenticeships. You did your apprenticeships there, and people say, no, it didn't happen. Yes, it happened. People were sending people in there. And throughout the European history, nobles or aristocrats will send their kids to the known schools to learn how to fight. This is something you're going to learn. You have your English teacher, you got your tutors, you're going to school, you're being homeschooled. Most of them are being homeschooled by somebody or another. And guess what? You also have some type of martial art instructor that's teaching you how to fence, how to use a sword, how to do something. Then you went to a type of pre-college, college kind of high school, and then you went off to the university. You went off to become a lawyer or such. If not, you were in the real world already. You go off at your school if you went to the military, but you were taught how to fence. You were taught how to use your hands, your legs. And this was going on in France and throughout Europe in the 18th, 17th, 16th century, 15th century, all the way down.
It was.
And people do not understand that this existed. Here in the United States, it was for a while, and all of a sudden, everything kind of, after the Great Depression, everything kind of just diminished. So you had a lot of ethnic groups that would teach the people that were there.
Yep.
And people say, no, it's not true. Yes, it is. The Chinese taught the Chinese, the Filipinos taught the Filipinos.
Yep.
Here you had it in New Orleans, you had it in the Italian Americans, they had it. And then what became this kind of the senses of boxing? Boxing, you needed to learn boxing.
Yeah.
And I tell people this. Why do all enforcers to the underworld train in boxing?
It works.
It works. They don't train anywhere else. They train in boxing. Now you start seeing them dabble in certain other things, but it was boxing more like.
That's why I say
of kung fu, that's what they did.
Kung fu was good. That a lot of the Chinese people that worked on the railroads were teaching, the guailo, some kung fu and Wing Chun and whatever. Wing Chun wasn't really. It was kind of around back then with Ip Man and stuff like that, but it was more like a kung fu or Hung Gar, the hard style of kung fu and all that kind of stuff. And I try to explain to my students. I said, you have to unlearn to learn. You have to forget everything you know. You have to empty your cup. what we're trying to do is learn an Asian martial art, an Eastern mindset with our boxing wrestling mentality. I said, when the Europeans came to the United States, Anglo-Saxons and all of that came to the United States, and the Vikings were here and all that kind of thing, they learned boxing and wrestling. And that's why boxing and wrestling and the MMA is so popular, because we can relate to it. You know, it's part of our Western culture. But what I teach my students is, you know, you can't learn how to cook Korean food with an Italian mindset. You have to go get rid of the Italian mindset and actually study everything you can about the Korean culture, you know, or Filipino culture or French culture, or where things came from, why they were created, and what was the purpose behind them, and who were the creators, and, you know, where did they start, and, you know, how did they put it all together? And if you really want to learn, like I tell people, you really want to learn aeronautics, go talk to the Wright brothers. You know, sure. They started the whole thing, you know. One of the things I love about teaching the martial arts in the United States is there's so many different ethnic groups in the United States. There's so many opportunities to learn, from Penjat Salat to Kali to karate to, you know, to Aikido to Kendo to, you know, Judo. You know, I mean, everything. There's all sorts of Savat. You know, you've got all sorts of things. And then I was teaching my kids, you know, because my family's from Germany. There were German martial arts too. You know, you have to go back and look at all of history and say, look, the sword isn't a new thing. It's been around for a really, really long time. So if you're going to think like a knight from the 15th or 16th century, thinking you have an 8-pound sword and 200 pounds of armor on, and you're going to swing a samurai sword or a katana the same way you're going to swing that sword, you know, it's not going to work for you. It's a completely different technique. It's flow, it's water, it's movement.
Everything, you know? Yeah. And a lot of people do not understand that, you know, and a lot of people do not understand that. How can you get, I'm going to go down to this a little bit in there. You had Cortez. Cortez went into Mexico with 300 men.
Right.
And he conquered the most advanced American civilization that was there, which was the Aztec nation, a warring tribe with 300 men. They had to know how to fight somewhere along the ladder. It wasn't magic that got them there. And it sure wasn't the apparent allies that they had. They might have had a couple of others. It was their fighting skill that brought them in there. People can discuss whatever they want, and that they thought they were gods, and you can go into that realm. No, these people knew how to fight. Yeah. That's why the term conquistador means conquerors. They weren't called the gentlemen. They were called conquistadores. They knew what they were in there for.
Door kickers and skull crushers.
Yeah, plain and simple. They were there for one reason alone. And unfortunately, that's how the U.S. was brought. It was U.S. sent in their fighting men, and they stayed behind. And you had a lot of these cultures that developed, and it's still embraced in the old. It's still here in the U.S. Somewhere along the line, they're dumbifying it, for me not to use another word, but it's still there. Yeah. And you still have these great Americans out there throughout the Americans that are going to say, no, not today. It ain't going to happen. That's why you have a lot of great warriors, not great fighters that we have. But we have to pass that back on to our students. And I think the main thing, knocking it down, because it's a great conversation that we're having. I really appreciate it. It's, what do you think, besides electronics, is a missing element that we have to get back as martial artists to the community?
I would say because the majority of homes are missing a father. There's no man in the house to teach them how to chop wood, how to put up a fence, change a light bulb, fix a leaky sink, change a car tire, dress a wound, how to you burn yourself in the acetylene torch, doing something, you don't put the acetylene torch down and quit. You burn yourself, you wrap it up, you keep working until you get the job done, and then, you take care of non-life-threatening wounds later. I think that's one of the biggest things is all of this thing is that we've been taught that we're nothing more than animals supreme through evolution, that we're just a piece of meat that came from the dirt and we have no purpose in life. So why keep us alive? Let's kill them all in the womb. It's a horrible way to think about human beings, that we're worthless, you know? And so people in this new generation, they feel, well, I'm worthless. Why should I even try? Why should I even try? Because the harder I try, they're just gonna, who cares? We've lost that humanity, the love, that we're supposed to have for one another. In Korean, the word is jang, sticky love. It's like if you take two pieces of sushi rice and stick them together, you mash them, they become one, and it becomes a bigger piece of rice and it's more nutritious. We've lost that in the American culture, that American fighting spirit. I am a fighting American. I am part of the United States of America. That in today's society, we've become so desensitized to our worth. And masks are a big thing of that. If you look through old cultures, there are some cultures out there who'd force their women to wear face coverings. Well, why? It removes their self-esteem. They never see anybody smile. They're looked down upon. They're not allowed to speak. They can't drive. They're not allowed to go to school. And it destroys a culture to think that one of the father or the mother is a worthless person. In America, unfortunately, we're toxic masculinity. We can't be men anymore in America because it's toxic. Oh, what's that bulge under your shirt? Oh, it's a gun because I'm a man and I carry a gun because it's my right and I want to defend my family. And quick and short funny story. When a lot of the people from California started moving to the United States, I was standing in a Starbucks and I was getting a something to drink, even though I don't drink Starbucks anymore. But anyway, I don't support them anymore. But I was drinking a Starbucks and a lady behind me kept whispering to her friend. And all of a sudden I was like, what is wrong? They kept getting more and more agitated. Well, she called the police and told the police, I think this man has a gun under his shirt. And the cops showed up and they pulled me off to the side and, excuse me, sir, do you have a license? This was before Texas was a Second Amendment. Do you have a license to carry? I do. I showed it to him. He said, have a nice day. And he walked out. That lady literally threw a hissy fit that they didn't arrest me and put me in jail and I'm a treasonous American. How can I ever own a gun? And all this stuff. And it was a horrible situation. I was embarrassed. The police were embarrassed. People drinking their coffee were embarrassed. But that's, like you said, that's what we've come to, is the men have been removed from the equation. You look at minority groups in the inner cities, 80% of those families have no father figure, and it's horrible. It's just absolutely horrible. The men have been told that, we've been told that, you're evil and vile, you hurt my feelings, all of this kind of garbage is going on.
I'm gonna tell you this, I have kids from a previous marriage who got divorced, and I went through the whole thing. And there's a law here called, it's a penal code, it's called Penal Code 2503, Texas Penal Code 2503. It's interference with child custody. If you go pick up your child and it's on a decree that you have it on this week and you go over there and they can't, the police are literally supposed to get the child or handcuff that person and take them to jail.
Oh, they consider kidnapping.
Yeah, it's never been done in the state of Texas, throughout everywhere. It's something that, we belong to several advocacy groups. I've done several documentaries. I'll link one at the end of this. It's called Judicial Cosa Nostra for people to see. They don't enforce it, but then the police are the same ones that are saying, all these kids have no father figures, they're deadbeat dads. You guys are not allowing the fathers that want to be in the child's life to be in the child's life. You guys are not enforcing legal decrees to be enforced. So don't cry to me. Go, it's you guys are the ones that are dealing bad. And, they hate it because I told them the other day, and I'm going for, don't get me wrong, because people are out there going to jump on there, but I'm going to give the rationale behind it.
We love cops, folks.
BLM and those groups came up with defund the police.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. They literally want to demolish police department. Yep. Defunding does not mean that. Defunding means that we have to have a negotiation with our police department saying, if you all aren't doing your job, well, guess what? Your pay scale is going to drop.
Yep.
Understand what I'm saying? I mean, here, you want to be a police officer here in Laredo, you're going to start off between 50 to 60,000. I mean, it's 60% of our city budget per year. I mean, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
We have to learn. I'm a martial artist. I've taught many police officers, and please do not get me wrong. I support and I teach. I help teach them and whatever they need. I have way too many students that are brothers as well, and that are wearing badges. But Uvalde should have told us that Uvalde, the people that taught all the 370 something police officers in Uvalde, are the same people that are licensed by TCLOS here in the state of Texas, teaching the other police departments the same thing. So how do you think the other police departments are going to react? The same way they did in Uvalde. Yep. It's just going to be a mirror effect. And people are saying, no, because we got 8 more hours of active shooting. No, if you had 8 hours of boxing or a savant and you came in and said, I'm going to join that tournament, I'll tell you were out of your mind. Because 8 hours doesn't do anything. You're going to get busted up. And that's what happened that's exactly what happened with them. They got taken out by a wacko 18-year-old kid.
Yep.
And he did a number. I mean, it's a horrific thing, but the kid, whatever he was on, if he was on something, he beat all those police officers up.
Yep.
Eventually they killed him. Yes, because that's the end of the story. That's the end line. But you know what I'm saying? You're going to tell me they're going to change? No, they're being taught by the same people.
Yeah. I've been teaching cops like you. I've been teaching cops. And actually, I have some videos of law enforcement training and stuff like that on my YouTube channel, which has 9 whole followers. But it's it doesn't matter. We try to teach the police, a lot of the police officers, and a lot of the cops really do want to learn martial arts, and some of them get really good at it. But the majority of cops nowadays, and I have my little sayings, they're badge heavy. And a lot of them think that their gun is a magic wand. It's just going to solve everything. But, if you look at the cops back in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, they've been a cop for 30 years. They may have never pulled their gun at anyone ever because they had those verbal judo skills.
Let me tell you something. Several years ago during COVID, I was supposed to get my children for spring break. I went out to go pick them up, filed a 2503 because she was not going to allow me to see him, unfortunately. They said he's going to bring them to you by 8 o'clock. If not, you have to file the report again. And I'm like, okay. So he was 9 o'clock. I refiled it again. The police officer that showed up starts arguing. And I said, well, you have to file the report. Mm-hmm. He takes 2 steps back and goes for his gun. Mm-hmm. I go, don't go there. He said, don't go there. I call the police on the line. I put the phone up. Mm-hmm. And you're like, imagine if it would have been somebody else.
Yeah, your hands are tied.
That would have taken off or gotten after the police officer or didn't know how to control the situation. I'm glad I had the martial arts skills and for me to descale that, call that left. Later on, the supervisor came, and I mean, it would have been a different story. But I think what we got out of it here, people, you all can see shift through the whole thing is we need to teach correctly. We need to bring back protocol.
Yep.
We need to bring back the respect. We need to, a lot of these schools are father figures to many kids. even let's guess what, I'm not saying that the father's not out of the house, but people work. Sometimes some kids don't see their fathers until the weekend.
That's true.
Even if their parents are together, while the father's working, the mom is working, they're running around. So there has to be the other discipline that they get is in the martial arts school. They get that father figure that he's like an uncle, and a lot of Sifu means uncle, and Chinese bakpak mean in Indonesian is uncle. So a lot of uncles were the ones that were out there teaching you how not to be that way.
And a lot of those old school teachers were guys that were too old to be warriors, but survived the battlefield for 20, 30 years. And they have a wealth of knowledge and experience to share. And it's the same in Korean, Sabonim means teacher, and Sabunim means like Sifu. Sabunim means like father figure. And, that's what my instructor became to me, was he went from Sabomnim to Sabunim, and he taught me more than just martial arts. He taught me life skills, how to have relationship, talking to people, and just being a human being. That's what these kids need. They parents, you got to get your kids in the martial arts, but you've got to check out, the martial art teachers that you're putting them under. Don't just go to karate daycare. Really research your instructors. Look at their certificates. Ask to see them. Don't be shy. Where did you learn from? Interview that martial arts instructor and be brutal.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Well, my brother, you be safe. It was a great talk. Folks out there, if you got something out of this, press like, subscribe, and we'll see you all soon. Till next time, much peace.
Hang 10.
Be safe.
Aloha.